All right, welcome everybody to the Fireside chat with journey of founders and investors from IIT Guwahati. I would request Aman Mathur to take the initiative to welcome everyone for the session today.
Yeah, thank you, Sumati, and I welcome everyone for this event organized by IPV in association with the IIT Guwahati Alumni Association. And I would take this opportunity to thank Vinay and his team for having this event with us, and especially Gautam and Sumati, the organizers here. And coming to the event, I myself, as a founder, I can tell you that although the finance will not resolve your funding, will not resolve all of your issues in this startup, but it is definitely the first step in the journey for achieving your dream. So IPV as a platform, as a company which is working in the domain of the angel investing, is doing a tremendous work. I congratulate IPV for the work they are doing in the industry. And I congratulate Arjun and the team Syook. I congratulate Adviso, the startups from the IIT Guwahati, who have been able to raise the fund with the help of the IPV. And I think this session, today's session with the Kshitij, Arjun, and Vinay here, I think it will be a great learning experience for all of us. So I welcome everyone today for today's event. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Aman. As the president of Alumni Association, Aman has been a really great support for us to drive this initiative. IIT Guwahati was one of the first few alumni communities that we had, and today we have around 20 communities across various premier institutions from tech and management institutions across the country. You can see the names on the board, with the recent ones being IIT VHU, IIT Ghaziabad, FMS, and IIT Roorkee and IIT Kanpur. We have more than 2,200 members on board as we speak today. There are 37 startups that we have funded through the various initiatives, and we look forward to much more from this with the various institutions that we have. To begin with, I would like to panel today. Before that, we would like to inform all the audience that as for Founders Genie, anyone who is a founder of a startup has a 6 months free membership, complimentary membership to Founders Genie, a sister initiative that we have, where you can network with like-minded founders, where the USP is where you have exclusive access to Founders Genie. You can hire in 15 minutes, you can put jobs, you can recommend candidates. It's a micro-learning platform. We see founders share a lot of information. And of course, you can explore synergies. And it is spam-free. You can scan the QR codes on the slide if you'd like to join the Founders Genie. All right, thanks, Yash. We can move to the next one. I'd like to introduce you to our founder of IPV, Mr. Vinay Bansal. He comes with more than 20 years of extensive experience across various domains. He has primarily held positions as CFO, but comes with a vast amount of experience across businesses as well. He's worked for Unilever, GE, a startup such as Wildcraft, and as well as private equity firm as TPG. So comes with holistic experience across various aspects with businesses. He's also an active angel investor. You can see successful investments that we have put down there: Milk Basket, Bharat Pay, GeoIQ, Fitso, Sportado, and Roar. Next, we have Arjun Nagarajan. Is one of the first few startups that we had funded way back in 2019. He's founder of Syook. He is graduated from IIT Guwahati in 2006 with BTech in Civil Engineering, post which he worked with Schlumberger as a field engineer in 10 years for 10 years across Mumbai, Doha, and Texas. As the founder of Syook, he's helping industries automate and move towards Industry 4.0. Syook helps asset tracking, and it does not depend on this, and that's what makes it unique. It's an IPV and ONGC funded startup. Apart from this, Arjun has taken up a lot of initiatives, especially during the COVID situation, where he successfully set up 25 oxygenated beds across Karnataka during the peak of the wave, and has enabled contributions of over 20 crore in contributions. We also welcome Kshitij, who's graduated from IIT Guwahati in 2012. He joined Flipkart straight after graduation. He has intensive experience across various international and national startups such as Housing, NuvoX, and Indies. His latest stint is with Gojek as head of product. Gojek is a unicorn connecting 100 million users to over 2.5 million drivers across Southeast Asia. Currently, he's now full-time working on his startup in stealth mode for the last couple of months. So we welcome all of you to the panel. I'd like to hand this over to Shashank, who is the moderator for today. Thank you, Shashank, for all the efforts put in to get this together. We really appreciate it. He's part of the Alumni Association, which has also conducted outreach programs, including Y Combinator session, webinars, etc. And Shashank is a technology product enthusiast. And thank you so much for all the support that they've given us. Over to you, Shashank.
It's been a pleasure working with IPV so far. And once again, on a personal note, I welcome all this panelists for the day, Vinayak, Kshitij, and Arjun, and thanks to all the organizers involved, and welcome to all the attendees. Just as a general note, before we can start, we have a couple of questions we would be asking multiple panelists, and the interested attendees can also post in their questions in the Q&A section you can find there. So we will be picking a selected ones depending on the time we have, but we would love to cover most of them possible. So feel free to chime in with your questions and we'll get started. So we'll start with this most senior of our alumni, let's say, Mr. Arjun. You have graduated from 2006. At least I know I was barely 8 years old, and when you graduated. So not trying to make you feel old, but I would love to know how was IIT Guwahati, the campus, and what was student life back then?
Hey, thank you, Shashank, and thank you all for joining today. Very, very different, right? We had only about 3 hostels at that time. I mean, the girls' hostel was built, the first girls' hostel, I heard that there are more than one now, was built after we got onto campus, but it was a very small community, right? And everyone knew everyone, pretty much. We knew the names of all the faculty across the 6 or 7 departments that were there. And it was much smaller, formed closer bonds. One big difference was we used to spend a lot of time outside, at least a lot of us would, because there were no computers. I think in the first year, I still remember there were probably a couple of guys who had computers, and then the number grew as we grew through the years. So very, very different. I see that a lot of development has happened, and campus looks very, very beautiful now. And yeah, it was much smaller back then.
Well, I could only imagine how it looked. We do have some photos I randomly come across for such times. And Kshitij, you're much more closer probably to in terms of graduation to me. And how was your student life in terms of, I expect it's much more evolved in terms of clubs and fests and so on. So feel free to lighten us on how was your campus experience.
Sure, sure. First of all, thank you for having me here. And I echo what Arjun was saying, and I've also seen a lot of things, grow as we were in the campus. For example, in the first year, I remember a lot of us used to go to computer center because not everyone had, laptops and computers in the first semester or the second semester, and then people bought them. So there used to be, long queue. I mean, you had to sometimes book slots as well. So yeah, that was definitely there. But yeah, in terms of I think infrastructure, it has grown a lot, and I think around the time when I joined, there were around 7, 8 hostels at the time, and when I was graduating, I think 3, 4 big hostels were also constructed by that time, and I also actually shifted from Kaming to Umiam because it was a new hostel, and I was given an option that okay, you can go to the newer one, so I opted for that. So yeah, I mean, infrastructure-wise, it's been great, and I think the weather is definitely awesome in Guwahati. Of course, during I mean, except during the months of August and September when there's just too much humidity. But apart from that, yeah, it's great, and you can always track to hills that are there in the campus, and there are lakes, artificial lakes, natural ones. So natural beauty-wise, it's been great, and I think it has also been developed and cultivated by the administration. So that's also a great thing. And in terms of festivals, I think festivals have also grown a lot in terms of budget and in terms of people that we have been bringing in. I remember when I was I've been a participant, I've been an organizer, I've been in the management team as well across different years in different kind of festivals. And I remember, Al Charinga is something which a lot of college students from nearby colleges, nearby regions, and sometimes people coming from, Meghalaya and other states to join, rock music festivals and, rock music competitions that we have in Al Charinga. So yeah, I mean, those festivals have been very key, I would say, as part of the student life in IIT Guwahati.
Definitely. I'm sure even across batches, fests are something we hold really close to our hearts, indeed. So just sticking on to you, Kshitij, you have transitioned directly from college, if I understand. You joined Flipkart and you majorly stuck with a lot of startups. And back in 2012, relatively, the startup scene in India is in its initial stages, if I could put it that way, compared to the current. So what made you join a startup ecosystem? Or what was the thought process for such a young mind?
Sure. So I think if you have used the product and if you've been using the product, so it makes easier for you to relate to the product. And then that okay, once you've used the product and that you're going to be working on it, you already know what are the things that you like and what are the things that you can fix. So that is something which becomes very easy for you to relate to that product. Second, a lot of seniors were already there in Flipkart. For example, one of the Department of Design senior was in the design team. He was one of the leads there. That was one contributing factor. And there was another senior from Department of Design, but he was in the business team, Ankit Nagori. So these seniors have, sort of paved the way and gave this confidence that you can, join these startups. And, Flipkart was anyway becoming a household name. So it wasn't a very difficult decision at that time. And Flipkart was also, one of the companies which came on day zero on placement. So it kind of also made easier on those terms. And in terms of transition from, college to Flipkart or to professional world, it actually wasn't very difficult because the Department of Design kind of paved the way for this transition, and it made it really easy because DoD really helped shape up the thought process and how to approach problems in a structured manner. So and that is what I anyway ended up doing in Flipkart in those days. And interestingly, a lot of interaction design and structural design of, Flipkart web still, a lot of those things are still the same as, what I had designed it 9 years ago.
I suppose that compels you to buy from Flipkart every time.
Yeah.
Moving on, Arjun, you have had a quite opposite career, if I could say. You started off with a huge multinational company, that's Schlumberger, and you pretty much traveled with it through for a majority of your professional life. What was the call behind it? How was it like traveling across multiple countries and the whole geography you have covered?
So Schlumberger was a surprise entry on campus, right? And it was the first time Schlumberger was recruiting from IIT Guwahati. So they came very late, right? After all the placements were over, I had a job as a futures trader in a different organization, right? So I thought, okay, this is some oil company, let's go and try. They're saying that they will place us somewhere outside India. There is a chance to go and work outside, right? But what we need to understand is that time there was not much of a startup scene, or that do things on your own and all of this. So everyone was looking at who offers the best package, go and take it, and let's figure out stuff, right? So I started off, when gave this interview, one of the 6 people who got selected, then got into Bombay, then traveled to, spent some time in Egypt, spent some time in Qatar, Yemen, different places, right, where not a lot of people go. Had the good fortune of meeting my co-founders along the journey. So Saurabh and I go back to Bombay about 15 years now. Aman and I go back to Qatar about more than 10 years now. And what Schlumberger taught me, the most important thing that we learned is there is no option to say no, right? Because in the oil field, you are put under a lot of pressure, and you end up doing things that were not achievable otherwise, right? So I think it's been a great learning experience. And the other very important thing that we learn in Schlumberger is, always keep learning and always keep evolving. And that's how I decided to learn coding when I was 33, right? So after 10 years in the oil field, decided to learn coding and build a product and go in that direction.
That's indeed inspirational for someone at that age, when people usually say you really can't change tracks after a point, but that's indeed inspiring. Talking about huge work experience and a wide range of experiences, I think we'll have to bring Vinay into the conversation. So Vinay, I suppose you have covered a lot of ground, more than I could even imagine at this point. You have been leading the business and finance divisions for a lot of prominent companies, and eventually you have transitioned into angel investing and specifically IPV. So what was your journey like, and why angel investing and IPV in specific? So what was your journey? I'm sorry, Vinay, I think you're muted. Yeah.
Sure. My IPV helps a lot of startups. We would like to believe that IPV is a startup itself. So it's kind of a startup by founders for founders, right? Now the question is why. Startups exist to solve problems which others think are either not solvable or others don't want to solve. So during the journey, I had a very wide variety of experience in consumer companies, industrial companies in India, outside India, Europe, Asia, etc. And I had the privilege to see the world and the problems that the world presents. I also had the privilege to see how people get siloed, even they grow to senior jobs. So when I was a CFO, I realized that even CFOs are not able to solve things quickly, even at that senior level. And I said the only way to do it is when you can get some great like-minded people to come together, then magic can happen, right? And that was the purpose that I set up CXO Genie, which today also solves problems for CXOs, whether they are CFO, CHR, etc., within 15 minutes. And the idea was, again, bring the best of the brains together in a very cohesive, coherent manner. After we did that, I think IPV became very simple because here it was a world of problems being solved by various founders and startups, right? And when we started looking at founders, working with them very early on with Milk Basket, Fitso, all of these became our portfolio companies and then got sold also. But we realized that fundraising was a big problem for founders. We realized that half of the founders' time, or if there are 4 founders, 2 founders are on fundraising. We realized that founders were not getting funding unless they know somebody in the VC world, right? You needed to know somebody in Sequoia or somebody who knew Sequoia to be able to go to Sequoia, right? And therefore, we wanted to build a plan or a platform where any good founder could come and present. And it will get funded if it's good. So we built an open platform where all applications today come via our open platform on our website. The second problem was investors. When we wanted to invest, we didn't know what due diligence, who is the founder, what is he doing good enough job? And we needed to check off thousands of points before investing. No platform did it. There were a lot of platforms in the country, but nobody was doing it the way it should be done. And being a Six Sigma professional, I said, I am very worried of, if things are not done properly. So we said, okay, if others are not doing it, they're not solving for the founders, not solving for the investors, we will do it. So we took that as a problem and then founded IPV. So that was, kind of the brainchild behind both CXOGenie and IPV. And I would just leave the answer by saying that whatever problem, however tough, if you have great people with you and if you are in great company, you will solve it while having fun.
That's a good note indeed. So in summary, can I say that people have problems, startups solve it, startups have problem, Vinay and his team at IPV solve it?
No, we all solve it together. As simple, right? We solve it
that's pretty impressive indeed. So sticking to you, Vinay, we would love to know that what was your relationship with IIT Guwahati and how have you I got to know that it's the first community-based interaction you set up, and we're indeed glad about it. And would love to know what's your relationship with IITG, like why IITG as your first community?
Sure. Sumati said that we have 20 communities, right? And we have funded founders. We have funded 37 startups who have founders from these 20 communities, right? So if you do the math, it's about 1.8 startup per community, right? That we should be funding. But we actually funded 4 startups from IIT Guwahati. So, IIT Guwahati is already 2 times of any other community we have funded, whether it is Arjun at Syook, whether it is Gaurav at Helofy, or whether it's a couple more that have got funded by IPV. But, Guwahati has its own charm. I got invited to Udgam last year, 2020. So we went, it was, I think, January, very good weather and good Arjun that you didn't have computers that day. You would have missed all the scenery around, all the great place around, because otherwise we just keep spending time in front of computers and screens. I just loved the place. But then I also took some time outside my judging of the startups, etc., to meet the alumni there, right? And the alumni, office bearers at that point in time. I think Mayank was there and so on and so forth. And what I realized, I said, okay, what are your problems? Because I always hunt problems, right? So they said, Vinay, we have a lot of problems. I said, okay, I would want to hear, and those are kids, right? I mean, they said, alumni, we have alumni, but we don't know each other well. We don't have a network to talk to each other. We have not had an alumni meet, let's say for 25 years that the institute has been together. We want to do that, etc. We want to bring the community together. I said, fair enough. Can I help you do that? And when we got into those conversations, snowballed into something bigger. And by the time I spent my 2 days at IIT Guwahati, did stuff. We also, by the way, funded Adviso. We found Ravi Nishant. That conference, right? We came back and we said, okay, we think we have another problem to solve, right? For the best institutes in the country, right? We need to bring them together. They have to be collaborative, and then we can solve a lot of other stuff in the country. The other piece was that a lot of brain drain is happening or was happening or has happened in the last 40, 50 years. The best of the talent of the country ends up being outside, right? And we said, how can we keep that talent here and do some great work here, contribute to innovation, give them safe careers here. And that was the whole process of, which started off from IIT Guwahati. We said, okay, we'll take the first case with IIT Guwahati and build a community around it. and it worked beautifully. And of course, people like Aman and Aman's predecessors, they all came together in a very supportive manner. And we were able to work together again collaboratively and solve for each other. And that led us a whole different path of opening more communities. And I would say in the last 18 months, right? It's just been 18 months, we've opened 20 communities, right? And more than 2,200 plus, community members that have come together. They enjoy other conversations on IPV as well. So, that's the camaraderie, the friendliness, ability to solve things together by working with each other. I think that's been a great fun working with IIT Guwahati. I look forward to more.
And the feeling is absolutely mutual, Vinay.
Yeah.
And moving on, Kshitij, so you have been part of a lot of startups in relatively early stages, be it Flipkart and your early careers, and much more recently Gojek before before you started to establish your own startup recently. So would love to know what drives you to be in this startup, and more importantly, innovation, the entire ecosystem. What's your innate motivation which helps you out?
I think what Vinay mentioned, what Vinay rightly mentioned about, startups are there to solve the problems which others are not solving or are not willing to solve. And that is what, drives me towards startups. And this is also the reason, I joined, one of the startups that I joined, right after Flipkart was Touch Talent, and I was the fourth person to join that company. So I always wanted, I like to take risks wherever, I can in a calculated manner, and, this kind of approach towards, working with smaller startups and, joining early, it kind of gives an opportunity to learn things which you might not otherwise do, or, opportunities that you might not otherwise get to do. And I'm sort of a do-it-yourself person, and I'm a self-learner. So I do a lot of things on the side, and I try to learn as I try to learn things on the job, try to be hands-on on, things whenever I can. And that is what these startups have helped me do. And this has also kind of given me a confidence to, start something of my own now. Yeah.
Great. Now, as a continuation of that, you have even taken up being an investor along with as part of the IPV. So would love to know, one, definitely how your experience has been with IPV. That's something maybe you could start with, and we can build upon that. Yeah.
Sure. So interestingly, I got to know about IPV through IITG, IIT Guwahati Alumni Association. I received one of the emails, I think back in May or June, and that is when I, got to know about IPV. Then I signed up there. I think I was on the platform for a couple of months, 3-4 months. I think it was the trial period at the time, and IPV at the time was completely managed through WhatsApp, and now there is an application. So I think that's how I got to know about IPV, and then I spent some time, for initial founder pitches, I attended them around 10-20, and then I, got the gist of, how it's going, and it kind of gave an opportunity to learn how, how investors are thinking and how founders are pitching. So IPV has kind of, made this accessible to a lot many people who would not have otherwise had access to, this asset class to invest in. And I think as an investor, it is also very important for you to, have proper allocations in your, portfolio towards certain risk factors, certain volatilities, and that is what, startup investments, angel investments kind of bring. So of course, I mean, it depends on everyone's appetite and their own personal, finance principles. So you'll have to allocate your assets accordingly. But it is an important asset class as an investor to invest in, and yeah, that's how I first I spent some time, on the platform learning, and then I started investing.
Great. Now, trying to go from the people who are actively giving funds towards startups to people who are planning to receive. Would love to know your opinion, Arjun, on the fact how do you see the role of an angel investor, and how things evolve with you and investors over time?
Absolutely. So
being a co-founder yourself. Yeah.
So when Saurabh, Aman, and I quit our jobs, we didn't know much about investment or this one, right? So what happens is when you don't know what to do, you go back to your networks, your community, and try to figure out, right? So, for example, we all moved to Bangalore because one of my very good friends and IIT Guwahati batchmate Raghu was in Bangalore, right? So I called Raghu from the US and said, "Man, I'm going to come here, right? So where do I land up in Bangalore?" So we stayed at his house, and that's where the groundwork for Syook was done, right? So next time, as you grow and as you start to get traction, right? What do? Again, rely on your community. So in fact, the first two investors were Shiva and Raghu in the company, right? Both IIT Guwahati entrepreneurs and technocrats, right? They taught us a few things about how to build a tech startup, right? I'm a civil engineer by qualification, right? Worked in the oil field. So again, the community is there, right? Now, then you continue to grow, and then you meet, people like Vinay who are doing this at a national, if not a global scale, right? And the network that IPV has offered is amazing, right? You want someone in X company. We are a B2B IoT startup, right? So for us, connections in the industry are very, very important. So I can pretty much pick up the phone and say, "Hey, you know what? I need a connect in this company. Can you help me out?" And more often than not, the reply is always, we know this person at this senior position, so here is the connect, go and do stuff, right? So not only in India, right? We get networks in US, networks in the Middle East, and all of these happen because of again the angels who invested in us, right? And one more very important aspect other than network, right? Sometimes you know it, right? You are not ready for the big VC money. Either you don't have that level of product market fit, or you don't have that level of traction, right? With IPV, for example, we were very, very transparent that, this is where we are going to get in the next couple of years. This is what we are going to build. This is where we proved ourselves, and so on, right? And angels generally take that risk at an earlier stage, right? And that has helped a lot of companies like us build tech to be able to get to the next level, right? If it were not for angel investment, we would have probably run out of money at some point in time and said, "You know what, let's try something else," right? So again, it's a very important need that in the market that angel investors are filling.
Now, these are some of the valid points. I believe if anyone in the audience are co-founders themselves, they could be taking notes or relating to it. Now, I would love to know Vinay's perspective on what do you think matters the most for a startup to succeed, and or in terms of how do you think entrepreneurs watching this should position themselves or to make it much more fancier and relevant to both the market and also to the investors?
Sure, I think an entrepreneur should probably have, since you asked a question about entrepreneur and investor, I would say entrepreneurs should consider it as a partner. Where an investor is bringing the network, is bringing a financial kind of a support, and a few other things, and maybe mentorship, guidance, etc., or even business connects, while the founder is putting his time, energy, ability, and a lot more in building that partnership up. So I think that's a good relationship to have as a friendly partnership. But generally for entrepreneurs, because they are solving tough problems which are not being solved by others, etc., they have to be out of their comfort zone, right? And if you have to be out of comfort zone, which means you're fighting a battle which you don't know the result of, you need to be very focused, right? And therefore it's important to first experience the problem so you exactly know what you want to solve for, and then dedicate yourself to it, right? And that will need focus and passion. Now, a founder is not a Superman. He should understand that collaboration and working with the right people who trust him and whom he trusts will add multiple levels of, of support to the startup in succeeding much faster, right? So knowing the problem, experiencing it firsthand, building friendships and partnerships with investors, staying focused on the problem day in, day out, while still leveraging the benefit of the powers of their other Superman or other co-founders, their teams, and their networks. I think that is a great recipe for being able to solve the problem. Once the problem is solved, or it is towards solutions, money will flow in, customers will flow in, people will be far more willing to help you. I mean, it's a classic case of, मैं तो अकेला ही चला था, लोग जुड़ते गए और काफिला बनता गया, and I have experienced it multiple times. So that would be kind of my, I would say, advice. Simple two examples, if I would say, is Gandhi could not do what he did alone, but he had the ability to inspire many others to be with him, that the work got done or India got independent. Or Mother Teresa could not have done all of it herself. But yes, she was focused, she was energetic, she had a mission, but she got people together towards a much bigger mission, right? Things get done. Some things which feel impossible, as Arjun said, then suddenly start to take shape and start getting done.
That's indeed an insightful answer and a good analogy, if I could put it that way. Arjun, were you able to add some point to it? I suppose you were inclined to speak. Would you like to add any point to that?
I was just agreeing with Vinay when he said it's a partnership, right? You always need to see what is the ability, skill set, and inclination that one partner has, and look out for something that is complementary, right? And partnership is a great way of defining this relationship between entrepreneurs, between investors, and the entire ecosystem, right? So I was just wanting to highlight that.
Okay, got it. On a similar note, Kshitij, because you have been involved in startups or like heading the product, and even right now heading your own startup, how do you see the role of an investor?
I would echo Arjun's and Vinay's point. Money is one aspect, and it is, no one would deny that it is not an important resource that an investor brings to the table. But partnership is, yes, a very important thing. A founder is usually very, they should be very picky about, which kind of investor they're bringing in. Would that investor be complementing the business that they're operating in? Would they be adding value in one way? This should be one of the questions that they should be asking the investors as well, that how would you be able to help me, apart from the money that you're giving? So this is, how an investor would be enabling the startup through the network by opening gates and blocking them. That is an important thing that that a founder should be, aware of when they're bringing someone on the cap table.
That's a crucial point in case all the future entrepreneurs are listening here. So on that note, because I personally believe I'm a early stage in my career, and there are a number of students also in our attendees. We would love to know, how does the investor see how receptive is the ecosystem for an early stage professional or a student trying to build their own startup, and how do they even approach, or what mistakes do they avoid? So how open is the ecosystem for such professionals, and how do they start?
I think it's very much open, and how the startup ecosystem has evolved now in India over the last decade. There is an infrastructural support which is coming up from government side, from institutes. I mean, there are so many accelerator and incubator programs now where people just can go, and then it doesn't really matter that you have to be coming from top tier colleges. These programs support people who are coming from even tier 2 colleges and smaller cities. What matters is the problem that they're working on and how they're solving it. So at a very early stage, this is what matters. The initial support, the initial push that is required to double down on the problem and come up with a solution. But yeah, being a startup, you will try 100 things, and maybe 10 or 5 of them would work. So this should be an expectation that people should have in mind when they are starting up, that whatever they do, it may not succeed, but then your perseverance is something which will take you to the next level.
Got it.
Yeah,
and Vinay, I would love to know.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, Kshitij, go on.
Yeah, I was just saying that even now all the IITs have these entrepreneurial cells where you can go, and there are incubation programs. So it's very much open now, and yeah, it's more about the problem that one solves, the problem that one focuses on and what they solve.
Great. Vinay, I would love to know from an investor perspective as to what, or maybe if I could term it this way, as mistakes one could avoid, especially such early stage professionals, in order to prove their potential and also the problem they're solving to be worth it. How is IPV enabling it, and what mistakes they could avoid or minimize?
I think one or two things I would want to say is, one, be an expert in what you're trying to do, right? And go very deep in that, and be the best. And then also recognize that because you're best on one dimension, you may be average on other dimensions. Leverage your strengths. Focus 90% of your time on where you are best at. You will give the best returns there. But then leverage the network, the experts, the mentors, the guides on the other areas where you are not an expert, right? Take their help and bring those areas also up. And I think that would work wonders for early stage professionals, or I would say graduates from these universities. I think that will make you super successful. And Ritesh Agarwal, 19-year-old, set up Oyo. Did he know everything? No, but he knew the problems of the tier 2 hotels, and he knew the problems of the people who go and stay and coming from tier 2 hotels in pricing. He just focused on it. Then he built a strong team around him, listened to them, gave them the free hand, and worked that through. And as Arjun said, build your complementary skill set, which means that if then you are expert in one, somebody else is expert in another. There are two ways to think about it. One founder may say, oh, there is a complementary skill set, let's work together, respect each other, and run together. Other ways to say, oh, is to compete, saying, oh, I did this, you have not done this. Then then you're dividing the competencies. When you respect, you multiply the competencies, right? So that's the same two founders who are collaborative can work that way. Use the network and the advice of others to think through. And I think then there is nobody who can stop you from being successful.
Wow, that indeed is an encouraging statement. Let's now take up a couple of questions we have been receiving. First, to Vinay, it's almost straightforward a question. Do you enjoy being an investor or a founder?
Both, right? I mean,
you are an investing founder. I know for IPV you are.
So I think, I was taught very early in life that, all of us have two choices. When given with two choices, A or B, most people either choose an A or a B. but very few people will say, why can't I have both? Laddu in dono haathon mein laddu kyun nahi ho sakte, right? So that mindset is what is important. So I chose to be both an investor and founder, and I enjoy both very much.